Hello, America and world. We're in the same semi-ancient trap since before latter semi-ancient times with modern religion's messengers. So this is not debatable as anything that gets in the way of people's faith. This is about an archetypal, this is about a predicate acts delivery system method as an archetypal organized crime method. Excuse me, we're gonna make the reliefs as an identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself. But this trap is a increasingly powerful identity of negative value nature progression, self-cultivated self-value, through as victim reactions inherited for the propagated fact treatment nature styles, positive and negative treatment styles, inclusion and so for the defenses of that, so as forms and natures of debate that aren't with sequence true. They are preventing the short words to use all kinds of evidences. In other words, that's also simultaneously evidence of how we don't have free speech. And this is with simultaneously all evidences a demonstration of how our leaders don't have free speech because all locations, areas, states, sciences, campuses further, database relationships further, private ones, overt criminal enterprises. They were bound by and are bound by one. But you have to follow mandated law and its value here outside of courts. One-way reports. They have uses of the policing. They have the uses of the identities of the branches of government. Every modern hundreds of nations, A1 through Z, however many nations there are. Not by accident, nobody realizes this. In layers we have victims, but predators, as this is where the perfect world is forsaken. Quote, perfect world, unquote, which is a phrase used in many contexts, associated with the means to discern with our actually inherent active and progressive means, which requires value by and use of the importance of the identity of sequence true from the past, from before we were here. Because that's part of itself and demonstration of itself. The identity of volume per science needing to make a name for this identity of volume. We are together. So we have the human species identity of volume manifest distinctly from the other species. This is not string theory. This is identity. This is how the identity, at least what is at least the identity of the body of forever per science. That now who is increasing identity of volume per science has to define. We know that forever is increasing identity of volume /s. That is how it is, because only the extent of it, it's debatable if it has a name or not. And you need to name it in the process of being able to talk and think and communicate and understand. See, but this was entrenched before in America, before America was even founded. They sickly distinctly tactically pseudo-educated every single person of every modern nation about their founding, before their founding parents were born, before modern religion's messengers. Thank God for them. Now, when I say thank God for them, this is algebraic consciousness slash the consciousness algebraic. This is original to this YouTube channel. Snow people. So we're going to learn about the snow people, the ancient gaming system, which is broke. It's no joke. It just feels like games because evolution reveals fruits and gifts and means from nowhere. By using the science that goes by its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. Which is a trinity, 3 ways, 5 ways, 3 ways, and the value of that. And we'll examine this, is what English was revealed to teach about. So this is what we're going to examine how people of sciences could, like, on CNN today, I learned from Jane Fonda things I didn't know, and things more about things I didn't know. But the whole time, I'm aware of what I know and don't know, but I'm aware also of what I know everybody else is preventing mandated law and rolls with it. And I know defenses of that are all styles with the where formally the perfect world is valued forsaken. The real causes for negative value nature progressions, acts in nature are valued forsaken, which is by a predicate acts delivery system method. I'm not a lawyer, not a police form, not a criminal. And I want to stay that way. And other people that are innocent and were innocent in the past, and people that did and will keep doing wrong, it is because of a predicate, a method, that all you have to do is show this. Because it is simultaneously is showing you, excuse me, I refer to you snow people. If you want to be referred difference, in other words, this is coding, then it equals that. If then. So, we could code this. We have to just get on the same page. And for it to work, we have to understand the trap that every single hundreds of nations are in at once. They're here, and they can't talk about a lot of things. Common sense. Plus what they said. Plus they simultaneously pretend other. They forge their roles with hiding life progressions. Hiding from correlation nature, simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. So I say snow people because I'm also using as evidence how modern nations, religions, this has nothing to do with faith, how they preserved means to figure this out, how science is an internation became criminally foreign influenced. So now I remember what I want to see, because I was listening to Black Lives Matter on CNN, and bad things happen to people. And so how do we communicate this to make people understand things? And that's what everyone is always saying. But people are preventing the short words. And people are preventing mandated law outside. This is what I've been using for evidences, which is distinctly from all these styles of people A through Z. And because of how the breaching of this predicate acts delivery system method, that we're going to, that's one function. that we're going to name in our coding an archetypal criminal enterprise. In our campus, Marcius / campus Marcius. And the slash is the semi-nature too. Boxings come through. So who'll just believe? And anyone who this is a topic. This is where we make means from nowhere as the species identity of volume, as its antibody. Not just in other words, as its means to make fathomable by the human fact treatment nature how to react to a predicate acts delivery system method named an archetypal criminal enterprise. My theory per science, not per faith, is that Jesus Christ is partially about the preservation of in other words, Alpha and Omega is for syntax. It is for what generated the temporary / lasting. Beginning and end is temporary. It is an identity before and beyond the smallest thing. While as it. And so the biggest thing and all grouped things are its individual grouped and complete identities, identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that simultaneously increasing. Where value is nature, nature is value simultaneously, so we could see it as, discern it as the volume / S. So this is since before computers. The ancient the timeless snow people became an increasing identity of volume. It only feels like game / S is evolution science. This is where everyone is native pure. But not anyone individually grouped together, even if the whole species agreed together. You have to do it by the system that is the one identity, that is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. All exceptions in exception nature are only that and how it is. Semi-nature, 3 ways. In other words, inherent, active, and progressive. As increasing identities of volume as value as nature / nature as value, where the invisible. So we have sequence true, then the order of the finite. This is its perfect value progression system. Why we need to use the words value. Why? So we're in value nature systems that we're forced to be in. But that's hundreds of nations at once. And with that, what did that build? It built defenses of roles with that as fact treatment nature. What did that do? It built defenses of treatments of positive and negative. What did that do? That built, simultaneously, it built defenses of identities that were self-valuing for individual groups together reasons preventing, in other words, valuing the criminal insidious natures of positive treatments as victims, valuing that only having ever been fathomed by all natures of stories, all natures of real journalism and reporting, all natures of real heroicism, not just the kinds in hospitals, which is real. How great it is someone to say, okay, what I'm going to be in life. I'm going to be something great like that. Not to say that the identity ground locations. We have police form, we have psychology. Originally still delusions wrought. Simultaneously, which would be fine. But the rules, crimes, identity theft, racketeering, all kinds of because the reason why is because they had to hide roles with this vertical, horizontal with the databases of child campuses, of each age and nature law, from off them, but already having been off them, on off them. In layers further, keeping live progressions right back to all identity ground locations. And see, that was for the propagation of the fact, treatment, nature styles, the positive and negative treatment styles of fake difference in this identity of negative value nature progression that the organized, simple organized crime method, worse than war crimes, as the devil, per my scientific theory. See, we're supposed to, it says, per science, it says right in the beginning of the Old Testament, all you have to know is understand is right up to this point right here. And this is about where the sciences come together. You see. See, the sciences share an identity, individually grouped in together. So so everyone keeps saying, white people stand up. White people stand up. Then you have to let an individual use the premises to stand up for you. You have to let them use a quality. You have to let us use a quality of fact treatment. I'm the one who can want to do it for you. Proof. 2006 District Court case in Connecticut. Former director of the FBI was a defendant. Defendant, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence the Corrupt Organization Act. Note how it transitioned from the Organized Crime Control Act. Note this is syntax. So there's a syntactical shift. This is about coding, language. This is about also again the predicate acts delivery system method. Now this is also about how we are native, pure. Everyone. But that's not to not deny that Native Americans are distinctly more, some ways they're here native, pure, last defended, last remembered. See, the Republic was stolen from each distinctly. Every modern nation, hundreds even England, before they were born. This method was in nations individually grouped together. To defend that, the breaching method, the predicate acts delivery system method, knew that they would have to defend fact treatment nature styles, premises treatment, sequence shifts, identity treatments that could no longer afford the short words and the long words in the identity of correlation in the system of it to be discerned without realizing. They knew nature would continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and demonstration of it. That's probably the way the semi-ancients couldn't fathom that anyone would contemplate doing what the archetypal criminal enterprise did, per theory. But it also as evidences are how where the sciences have theories individually grouped and together. They're not just delusions wrought and using criminally foreign influence premises treatments and sequence treatments and self-defenses of that as fact treatment nature styles, identity styles. assertions about what the value of having a job or having had a job means. Roles with the worst in extortion. Predicate acts delivery system method again. Every modern nation is for. I was hurt by. So it could stay fluent through our nations, all in layers. Engineered, individually grouped and together. This was sophistication here since before them. We're in a semi-ancient trap. Also, proof of it is there is no other plan. That, in other words, and people that deny this, see, this is where they rely upon that which is overtly. It's one thing to have people certified, or to be doctors or to be professionals in various things. But it's another thing to use that to pretend people that aren't certified in that thing, make over allegations about us, pretending we have had sequence relationships to themselves at all. They put whole fake conversations into databases since everyone was kids. This is a method of preventing individuals from using premises treatments distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously while they're doing this to groups. And what you all share, A through Z, people of A through Z nations, our styles. Like, for example, since before the World Trade Center, Connecticut interbranch was recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. Since, where I found this out, because this is also stranger, how they use confessions. This is how the interbranch was used remotely as every modern nation, hundreds of nations. They use the identities of the ground locations. Everyone goes, like, they're backed into jobs, titles, identities of people, A to Z, the identity of the ground relationships. This is how we are a value/value progression. This is that pseudo peace positive as criminalization nature. For example, knowing that we want and need to have good relationships where everyone to be free and feel healthy and feel safe. Our neighbors, everywhere, our areas, states, locations, areas, states, nations, and species identity of volume. It's individual grouped and together. And it's if that is true, truly positive, to sequence that came first, and that is to come by its own value/value progression system as itself. That which is at least the identity of the body of forever. So, excuse me. So before that, case, that part of a case/S that was ongoing at the time of the plaintiff's death, and since, each year, a whole bunch of other nations involved with, in other words, victims. Everyone, but ourselves at once. But if they make opinions, then that's they're exploiting exceptions and exception nature. They have a crime method of readings of statutes that are exploiting exceptions and exception nature. Mandated law is not being followed outside of the law. This new method knew that everyone would have to pretend other. They would have to value that having been. What values that can't simultaneously afford to have understood how James Madison, what his plan helped and his roles did do for this country. And they can't afford to have their own countries and our own, the entire species identity of volume. See, we see suits and ties, fake sides, fake alternatives, individually grouped in together as fact-cheaping nature styles that can't defend that and afford discerned all that is capable of our and as this system of evolution, the ancient gaming system. So, but you have to enable the individual voice, so with the branches of government individually grouped together to hide this. Hundreds of nations at once, their styles, then they hide that. And this method knew that they were going to do that and how they would do it. Facilitated to it as victims, as fact-cheaping nature, where this is bound to all kinds of natures, used remote by itself and as itself by what is only, everything stays semi-nature, relationship to this archetypal criminal enterprise, which is again a predicate acts delivery system method. For example, evidences of it are how the identity grounds, since before cars, learned this from Professor, I don't know if he was a doctor of history, since before cars, while slavery was still sickly distinctly in the North and the South of the colonies, that James Madison found a plan to force everyone counter-extorted, to fathom, to have to fathom. This is what America is about overcoming. We have self-value, so we can't, so everyone was kept in they can't afford to have the simple, inherent, active, and progressive means of correlation nature to be connected. See, we have each age of fact-cheaping nature supposed to be paying attention to the different things. And we're all supposed to be doing this simultaneously. But this is through an identity of the ground relationship to fact-cheaping, positive and negative treatments, to identity treatments. At the same time, we're in this trap again. Hundreds of nations, the same thing. Sickly distinctly. Effectively having kept how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. Not one has learned. So we have cars now, but we're still in the same pathology of infrastructure that was set out since before our founding parents were born. The plan to have it go like this. Specifically, tactically denatured identity of the ground, native, pure, relationship to itself. The identity of value progression that evolution's fruits and gifts come from. The science of this does not ignore the value of the slightest exception or exception nature. Denied. Where it is, it does not value the perfect world, denied. We're using the identity of value/value progression that is a real cause of where positive and negative value nature progressions come from. This is again a method that forced this nature of slavery on everyone that no one's allowed to talk about. This is also evidence that no one's allowed to talk about how white people were slavery, even the people that held the slaves. How there was a breaching method, a predicate acts delivery system method. Again, hundreds of nations individually grouped together. Now, the real reason why we are individual grouped together, not just sexes, ages, areas, locations, states, countries, nations, territories, people, individuals, have needs to have free speech and mandated law followed outside of courts, outside of executive locations, outside of campuses, outside of database relationships. And see that was denied by a method that kept organized what no one was watching. And because it keeps victims that need to stay about everyone's a value progression. Why do you think we have to travel back and forth and stuff like that? See, but now it's in through a different value nature system, which I'm not trying to debate that. I'm trying to say this is preventing free speech and proper sequence treatments, preventing mandated law while pretending other. They have the interbranch locations have been used since before modern nations were founded. All statutes and precedents are delusions raw. Criminally foreign influence, how their identity, how they're kept needing to hide this, is how also the stewards of all the prisons and all the things tied to their locations, all identity ground locations. Forgiveness is because we have to use correlations means to discern remote uses of all locations, areas, and states. Again, for example, the pathology of what is supposed to be positive for us, like zoning laws, things to keep us safe, positive, kept criminal and citizens, employed by that slavery method against our founding parents, against nations individually grouped together, sickly, distinctly, to keep hundreds of nations and therefore the entire species identity of volume, self-value roles individually grouped in together with counters to the real causes of negative value nature, the real cause /S of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures being blamed on other things, others themselves, even when correctly, they're doing it wrong. Boxing is strong. So they can't afford, discern what demonstrates what to say to each age of fact, treatment, nature simultaneously, distinctly having been victims, having been forged, only capable of fathoming these, that pathology designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures they could then defend a fact treatment nature style. Time treatments. That are identity treatments getting over on forever nature, which identity is. Only the extent of it is debatable. So extent /S. I tell it best. Boxings. The science of sharing identity. They have each of these identity of groups. They'll jump forward, but they won't respond. Oh, they'll say, "Oh, well, we thought you were crazy." How do we know? There's professionals for that. When did they have integrity in relationship to simple correlation by so individuals are prevented free speech, and we have collusion with hundreds of nations at once, private criminal enterprises as victims, criminally foreign influence originally still. The businesses themselves, let alone the people, because this is they made perpetually self-cultivated, what they maintain, perpetually so therefore simultaneously perpetually self-valued. What can't simultaneously defend? What maintains perpetually self-cultivated? Fact treatment nature styles as criminal and seditious natures, wrongdoers, wrongdoing self-valued, predicate acts, delivery system method, /S roles, self-valued. Time treatments getting over on other people, subtle, because it's some of them, oh, but that's who you know, whatever. It's not just any of those. I shouldn't make one context because all contexts at once. There's an identity of negative value nature progression that's blamed on other causes. And that's forced. Cyclically distinctly on each location as an identity of volume. So the president and leaders are kings, chiefs, pharaohs. Their leaders inherited queens. And leaders inherited over states, areas, locations, sciences, database relationships, all simultaneously. Since before what they realize is juxtaposed there. Since before any nation was sophistication. Since before modern religions. The identity of sciences that had been revealed before it became criminally foreign influenced. That became criminally foreign influenced. Since before modern religion's messengers, thank God for them. When I say thank God, that means what I think is and would be perpetually positive onto and as sequence true. Order of the finite, true. Order of the active, true. Order of progressive, true. Now, and order of identity, true. Now here's a secret you're gonna examine. If you help me, use my premises treatments. Use the actual recorded wire crime methods that uses their life progressions. So they have manifest crime methods, police forms, like the Wethersfield Police, Wethersfield Interbranch from my town. But you have to be able to allow me to have the freedom to communicate with you and use evidences that are real outside of courts. Because they've been using the, quote, right to lie, unquote, criminally. They use each administration remotely by keeping the fake sides parties, fake sides branches with integrity, none of them. Every modern nation at once. So and then say one location, area, state, or of one modern nation starts trying to have integrity, that uses this value progression system that these market positions, every modern nation victim force rolls. Now this is not to knock markets. This is say we're in a trap. That where the hierarchy of everything is involved as evidence itself of an identity of negative value nature progression. No means to reactions to, like, in other words, the market's gonna be stable. How are we gonna ensure it? Artistically. We have to not just have unity. We have to use this identity of volume that is bigger than the species, while as its identity of volume that is positive. This is what has the identity of needing clean water, needing clean air, needing the right mixture of it. So this is sickly distinctly how people of urban and suburban. It's not just poverty. What are you going to say if you're involved with roles with that? When the answer is /S to what it really is also simultaneously what cures it. It's an archetypal criminal enterprise. What's that? A predicate acts delivery system method. What's that? Sustained. What's that do? It keeps self-cultivated what it propagated. What did it propagate? Positive and negative treatments, identities of criminal insidiousness natures, of wrongdoers, of wrongdoing, of real bad things and evil and hurt and pain and suffering. In fact, cheating nature, affliction that not one person is not affected by. This is an identity theft / fraud, where the / is also another identity of it. And the whole thing is against the identity of value / value progression that is bigger than and smaller than that. As that identity bigger than right to left, while it is bigger than left to right. And while it is bigger than top down and bottom up. Boxings. It tells us things. The sciences will heal. It's martial arts. Control your hearts. So, youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. That's my YouTube channel. My name is Anthony Wall. I had a number of fights through USA Boxing, from Connecticut Boxing. I have a number of shadow boxing fights with the space. Boxing is grace. There is no gym. I don't know. Who knows where I could train? Boxing is game, or not. So shadow boxing is great for everybody. I just say that, you know. What else? Oh, in other words, so someone please help. I asked for a long time. These are also people before that 2006 case. Now his co-defendants, former director of the FBI in that case. His co-defendants, Thaddeus Skarbowski, before that case, just before that case. I didn't know who he was. And he was right outside where the Fox Connecticut News is, in downtown Hartford, which has something to do with all these people tied to a house / SMI street that has cousins recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with interbranch family members and their kids. Where are the evidences? As victims. But as victim predators, everyone forced to speak through other people. Now these are also with people with various natures of courts involved with the Leahy family. 2 people with the name Brendan Leahy, women in their family, involved with the Hartford Hospital, with other doctors and nurses, intercities involved with lipoaggressions from there. And worse than that, standing criminal decisions not legalized, pretending to be so. We have other agencies also involved with them, pretending I had conversations with them about agencies and about police surveilling my father. I had a conversation with police surveilling my father in my life. These are people also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated tied to people at Trinity College and on and off Trinity College, on and off the wait though with the forgiveness thing. On and off the police department, off of it. On and off the private one on the campus of Trinity. How they moved that on and off there with the Central Connecticut State University. In New Britain, Connecticut. Because they are recorded involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime. With child offenders on the child offender registry, including a principal child offender. Now this is where and how they kept and keep collusion with the predicate acts delivery system method. That you have to have physical delusions. You have to express physical delusions, sequence shifts, and bad things. In other words, if you deny it. For example, when we get to black rights, say, but we just can't have the representatives of anyone representing us in collusion with that which is really against, and then which is really for the proper fact-achieving nature. A lot of these jobs are involved with a lot of natures of extortion. We don't want, in other words, you can look at things that way. See, but we have unity and non-unity and fake alternatives to keep the Trinity. Why we are individual grouped together. Sexes, ages, area. This is so we can see what is timeless, species, body, or volume. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously with that. Because it's how one identity is making more of itself. And we can only be. This year, heaven and hell came for scientific method and results of it per what is here now. See, we have Leith of Hadith covered over specifically to have that self-valued. Specific, knowing and effectively having kept no one to discern it. So everyone values where and how already used remotely. Roles with the vertical, horizontal database, organized crime method. Worse, as victims to worse, to law locations. This is the last thing. In other words, when you have to speak about what is positive or negative outside of court when they're not following mandated law, they weren't already. They just fake audio and video into databases. They already just make their wrong outcomes and use their locations as weapons. The people leading they have their readings of the statutes. They can't put them on paper in sequence, because then it will be revealed. They can't follow the rules. So these are rules, crimes, predators. We have forensics location. Then you bring in all kinds of opinionators. They want to debate over all things. No one knows each other. They walk by to pretend they knew you. So, in other words, you have to say things a certain way to count. Otherwise, they'll just pull you before the interbranch and lie more. They have judges and prosecutors, various natures of courts and police forms involved with Sullivan, and with officers forging and switching names, and fabricating audio and video with courts, intercities. From my town into branch, with overt criminal enterprises involved with their predicate acts that are fact, cheap, nature-oriented, wire crimes method rules. Also, WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, confirmed roles with the Thaddeus Skarbowski, and with Mendez police, brother, family, on off their location. And on off the Weathersfield Police Department attached me fake quotations, fake communications with him and them. Also foreign and domestic associated with mobile gas stations, pretend counters to that, military police family / S associated with like a some of these were people that were involved, were fitted to roles with what led up to the World Trade Center attack, and since with the investigators of it. Because they've been using connected, I don't know Debbie Gold. Other was pretended into databases by acting that was unfolded. And it was scary because she faked me into conversation. I didn't know what it was about. I don't know what they put in the database. And then she was the mayor's daughter. So whatever, I never had a cop. She was yelling, and I called her back her name or something like that. And they told me to write a letter, so I put it to stamp. But that was in 6th grade. But then why is that relevant? Because what did I say before? The people still now with the campuses further with the child offender campus then and now, they forced that not to be told on by fabricating audio and video in collusion with it, and with much more tied to it and more names through time since they were kids. This is this is in Wethersfield, Connecticut, 3 towns over from the Britain, Connecticut. But Central Connecticut was involved with strangers. Like you have someone in a class, the way they have the class. You know their name or something like that. You sit across the class, you're never going to see them. But then one day they make a confession, you don't understand about it. This is, in other words, with an organized crime method that is tied to the federal criminals of various natures. Dozens of names. But this in relationship to leading up to a 2006 case and leading up to the World Trade Center. They have crimes against both sides and against their family members and selves. And they have uses of their reactions to it. And they're preventing me and others from reporting what is actually recorded, which is a whole bunch of nations used remotely. Like, for example, how our nation had roles with this, as a whole bunch of nations with the World Trade Center tied to on-off Central Connecticut State University intercities rolls with this. Washington, D.C. rolls with this, tied to courts and stuff like that, language. Oh, but this is how we inherited it. Exactly. It doesn't correlate with the answer /S that explain the identity thefts of our founding Father James Madison in that plan, as it was actually presented to us. So we have people who can know more things, things. All they're doing is making you black and white, the way the breaching method set it up for us. So what is all locations, areas, and states, breaching method upon it, needing a quality of fact treatment nature that is being prevented to counter it. And it's being prevented because these fake sides are forcing collusion with, let's just throw up a theme. Let's just, let's just establish one truth and then go home. That's not instant change. Same page. All right. Species body could train. Could be a champion. So we have to understand the timeless know people. The difference between the timeless and the ancient. I don't know if I could speak a Robert Frost poem. So leaves it gives way to leaf, so Eden sake increase, so dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Is the end of the poem. I just part of it. It's a poem by Robert Frost, who lived 1874 through 1963. 1874 was 9 years after the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War, there was still slavery securely entrenched in the North too. Revolutionary War. Revolution is against that thing that is fluent through our nations, that has self-valued roles. So you make me give up, keep my secrets, like the people, the good and bad. Well, that's life. It's about the job. All right, and then we defend it. All right, defend it. But then don't let me not use evidence and others you not use evidences about where mandated law is not followed. So they send people to my house, forging names, switching names rolls, switching sequences rolls, with falsified police reports rolls, attaching me and others to fake locations as a kid and through my life. Because these are people roles with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. See, Hartford, Connecticut, between New York and Boston, is a small city. Plus, I did boxing. So I went to different cities, different states, you know, mind my own business and everything. But in other words, this is where George Washington had to come to secure the help of the French general that made even a war fathomable to win per what was already sustained, and that was already being sustained by a breaching method that had all self-cultivated roles. And that was what is exploited. And how it was exploited is discernible through the crime methods individually and grouped and together that the branches of government have that are completely fact-treament nature oriented. They can't afford mandated law followed outside of their locations because they have to hide lie progressions at every moment. They have to value the simultaneously inherent active and progressive means of each individual group and difference from being voiced, from prevented voice for a whole bunch of juxtaposed reasons, motivations bound. I'll gather round. So in other words, no one could deny that we need to do things for the system's broke. It never worked. Not on purpose, still though. Without expressing physical delusions, criminal foreign influences. To say that your identity is black or white is to make it less than it is. And to make it more than it is. I mean, to make it less than it is. And this is where and how identity is an only increasing identity of volume. Can't be less. This is the one thing that is all things at once. See, but we're through value nature systems, positive or negative, in collusion. What happens in locations, although investigations, investigators, and vetting identities are criminally foreign influenced. But this needs to be reported. This is recorded. Since before the World Trade Center attack, Connecticut Interbranch, they had rolls with a whole bunch of people on and off the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center. Also, that are tied to the people leading up to the 2006 case. Involved with the pattern of predicate acts against me and others. Identity thefts, frauds against me and others. Sequence shifts that are intercampuses connected. And that sustain is a real headache. And it has something to do with on and off the media locations. It has something to do with on and off where people are going to socialize where they didn't expect people would meet. They're overtly valuing the right to lie. Quote, the right to lie, unquote. You, with the man they said was named James Comey. On the news, on CNN, on the news, I believe Fox News had that too also. They all did. But who knows what they're doing, because I know that they're fabricating, they're attaching people to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, fake words, fake audio and video. Say CNN sources. So they're keeping victim predators because there's no way to get a mandated law followed. And they're lying about what is recorded over the phones. and they stacked. They're exploiting how there are tactically bonded natures of organized crime against each age of fact-achieving nature, and how it is uses of locations. Again, simultaneously, how it is uses of quality of fact-achieving nature styles. See